Alright, Shoto beat Dabi. Woo! The heroes are winning. Yeah. Is Dabi about to self-destruct? Go boom? What's up? It's Truth Hero, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter review. So Boku no Hero Academia chapter 353 of the manga. We'll discuss everything from Shoto's victory to all the heroes fighting villains in different locations, to giant, massive... Okay, that was a little weird. I won't do that again. Huge lizard spinner boy, and the possibility that this battle between Shoto and Dabi, brother versus brother, might not quite be over yet, and Dabi could actually be designed by All for One and rigged to blow, designed to take out some Class 1A students. That's right, stay tuned, and let's dive in. The chapter opens with Burnin and the other heroes confirming that Dabi has been detained, and this information causing the heroes to celebrate this small victory in this huge war. The heroes all praise Shoto, and honestly he deserves it. This is his greatest accomplishment yet, fighting his greatest demon. But now the question shifts to, can Dabi be saved? And if so, what role will Shoto play in this? Even if he can be saved, I think that it's going to be a long road for Dabi. But let me know what you think. How could Dabi, or Toya in this case, be redeemed? I'm interested in your comments. A bit later in the chapter we see Endeavor react to this news, and perhaps he feels a bit guilty because he let the entire responsibility of fighting Dabi, or even having a chance at saving Toya, fall on Shoto's shoulders. Again, it's a question of, can Dabi or Toya now be redeemed, and if so, what role could Endeavor play in this? Perhaps those two can be redeemed and walk a path of forgiveness together. The news of Shoto's victory creates this rippling effect, and all the heroes get a huge morale boost. I hate to be the optimist, but even though All for One and Shigaraki are still fighting, it seems the tide is ebbing in the heroes' favor. This brings us to our first location in the chapter with heroes vs villains, and we see Mount Lady standing there with heroes from Class 1A such as Ashido, Mineta, and Sero, and they're all around the prison that the heroes have constructed to contain Gigantomachia, which is in and around the site of Jaku Hospital, or what's left of that building, and it looks like they're gearing up for a major fight here. We see Kirishima show up saying the evacuation is complete, and that's great because they need a huge shield to protect this area, but I do wonder, in addition to these villains that the heroes here will have to fight, if Gigantomachia wakes up or is released from this prison, if they'll actually be able to subdue and defeat him without the help of someone like Bakugo or Deku, and in this case, Deku is on his way to fight Shigaraki, and I don't know if All for One can be handled by Endeavor and the heroes with him alone. Bakugo may have to help out him. So, good luck Kirishima and crew. The Liberation Front member that killed Midnight says defeating Dabi won't matter, that the heroes will still fail and will stop all who interfere with our plan, just like Midnight did. I really hope that Midnight can be avenged here, and who's more worthy of this task? Who better to do this than Mineta? That's right, you heard me correctly. Mineta, the ultimate ladies' man, the peak male specimen, should be the one to defeat this guy and avenge his teacher. The next location we flip to is perhaps the most interesting one in terms of a new person being introduced in the series, and that's this abandoned lot where we meet the villain Kunieda. He's a Tartarus escapee who can manipulate plants and vines and flowers, which he's doing as he's talking to Aoyama and Fat Gum. He's explaining he's All for One's new top gun, and that the villains were actually broken into separate groups based on what heroes their quirks could counter. The location Kunieda is in is for villains and heroes whose quirks are hard to pin down and counter. He then says to Aoyama, "We're gonna kill you," and Aoyama says, "Merci." I'm sorry. What? Oh, merci. Oh, thank you, Mr. Villain, for the swift and painless death. Okay, Aoyama, I understand that you're feeling a bit guilty for, betraying all your friends and all the heroes and society in general, but now is not the time to give up. Now is the time to redeem yourself. Go fight, stand tall, defeat some villains. Also, it's way too late in the game for Aoyama to be this scared of a new villain or a Tartarus escapee. All for One was literally breathing down his neck, okay? And he might have been, a puddle of tears back then, but come on, Aoyama, you can defeat Plant Man. Aoyama may be a scaredy cat, but granted, I will give him this. The way Kunieda is introduced in the series and the way they focus on him tells me that he's a cut above some other villains, that he's a little more dangerous than they can perceive right now. For example, what can those flowers do? It's possible that they could poison the heroes. It could be a slow death, or maybe they release a toxic spore or mist that messes with the hero's senses, and Aoyama will have to figure out a way to overcome his fear, and in doing that he'll overcome the sensory deprivation or manipulation by this villain. Or it's possible that he can just manipulate vines like a Poison Ivy character, and Horikoshi just wants to incorporate that comic book element into My Hero Academia, because other than Ibara, we really don't have someone who can manipulate plants. But comment down below, what that flower do? In the next location we have Shoji, that's right, my boy, good to see him doing big things, dodging huge attacks from Spinner, who is now giant. Lizard Boy has gone full Eren Yeager Titan mode, and it's hard to tell from this panel, but his size could rival that of Gigantomachia, so My Hero Academia has another monster on its hands, and this time it's a kaiju. Godzilla has landed. There's a very important flashback here which also involves Dabi, but we'll get to that in a bit, showing All for One put his hands out and onto Spinner, and it's very obvious from this that Spinner got some type of growth or size quirk which allows him to be at his present Titan form. I'm wondering if All for One gave him anything else, because he could be a second Gigantomachia, or, like I said, a virtual Godzilla. Spinner, perhaps due to his newfound size, now leads the division of mutants and villains with heteromorphic quirks in the Liberation Front against the heroes in this area, and Shoji, while he's not dodging attacks and fighting these villains, is, like the rest of his classmates in Class 1A, very proud of Shoto, and very pleased that he gets to just be in a class with someone who is so brave and who stood up and successfully defeated Dabi. And that's basically how this chapter goes. It bounces around between locations of heroes and villains and gets their reactions to hearing the news of Shoto's great victory. But the most important location in this chapter outside of Gunga, which is Endeavor vs All for One's area, again another Star Wars reference by Horikoshi, perhaps that could tell you how their fight will end up, is still Shoto's location. At the end of the chapter, Shoto is seen with Ida and he's telling him, "Oh, I overdid it," and Ida's like, "Don't worry, man, you got the dub." However, Dabi's there, and he's wondering why he's still alive. As he's pondering this, his chest starts glowing. That's right, Dabi could be rigged to self-destruct. Let's dive into this theory. All for One sees Endeavor react to the news and taunts Endeavor, saying, "Ignoring Toya and pushing the responsibility to Shoto was your choice, and now you're trying to convince yourself that it was the right thing to do. Heroes have many things to protect. That's why you're going to lose, number one." Essentially, All for One is telling Endeavor, you should have never sent Shoto to defeat Dabi. You should have been the one out there. Now, is All for One being evil and maniacal and taunting Endeavor? Sure. But what if he's warning Endeavor and lauding it over him of his gravest mistake? He could be saying, I meant to detonate Dabi to take you out, number one. And now who's out there? Your son. The one who should never have had the burden of fighting Dabi or trying to save Toya. The one you seek to protect the most. The one you want to pass all your knowledge and experience to. The one that you want to exceed not only yourself, but All Might, is gonna bite the dust. We also know that Dabi was engineered in some fashion to be kept alive from his fatal burns that he received while he was Toya, perhaps in some way like the high-end Nomu. he certainly seems to have an attachment to those creatures. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that All For One would just have Dr. Ujiko engineer something a bit extra in Dabi's body. After all, the kids at the facility where Toya was taken were all backup plans for All For One, and if one of them fails, well, All For One would likely dispose of them, so why not use a couple to take out a few heroes? A hero goes to save an unfortunate child, boom. Lest we forget, the other assets All For One had working for him, like Lady Nagant, had fail-safes, so if they ever betrayed or failed All For One, they, and likely anyone around them, would be swiftly eliminated. I guess All For One really is like Darth Vader.
You have failed me for the last time.
Instead of wondering, why did you spare my life? Dabi could be thinking, why am I still alive? Perhaps he knows that there's a failsafe inside him, and now that he has lost to Shoto and he's defeated, All For One would have no use for him. In the Spinner flashback, we see Dabi turns his back on All For One, rejecting new quirks or his help. So perhaps All For One enables Dabi to have this ability to burn it all down, since he knows he won't have to waste quirks or resources on Dabi, and that Dabi isn't much use to him anyway, since he sort of follows his own path. And let's be honest, if there's one character that's willing to self-destruct so he can burn it all down, it's Dabi. The last sort of tragic part to this theory, and just putting salt in the wounds, some evil poetic justice if you will, is that Shoto just saved Dabi. Not that All For One would know this situation would play out exactly how it did, he probably just plans for all contingencies, but we just had this beautiful battle between Shoto and Dabi, and Shoto embraces his brother at the end of the last chapter. The fire and ice cancel each other out. Shoto envelops him in cold fire, tough love, and you can see young Toya and young Shoto and their childhood memories coming together, and they're crying. And now, despite Dabi being completely powerless and is wondering, what do I do with my life? And Shoto has won. He's brought his brother back, perhaps. He won't have the chance to save him truly. Dabi will explode. And to add on to that, Endeavor will never get to see his son Toya again. And perhaps that's why All For One is laughing and taunting Endeavor here. Perhaps that's the true evil reason, because All For One knows Endeavor's never going to even get the chance to say goodbye. Or, and I'll be nice to all you optimists out there that want to see Shoto save Dabi, perhaps this is just Dabi's body finally disintegrating and burning up from the inside. There's nothing left but ashes now. This wouldn't give Endeavor an opportunity to reconcile with everything that's happened and say goodbye, but at least Shoto could sort of say goodbye, and he and Ida and the rest of the heroes wouldn't be in any danger. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Was this All For One's evil twisted plan from the start? Is Dabi really gonna go boom? Or are these the embers? Is this the final flame and ashes of Toya Todoroki? Really want to hear your thoughts on this theory down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. And until next time, plus ultra.